I still remember the day my son walked into our home with a smile big enough to brighten any mother's heart. Ethan had always been a quiet boy, gentle, soft-spoken, the kind who said more with his eyes than with his mouth. But that afternoon, he wasn't quiet. He practically glowed. "Mom," he said, stepping aside like he was about to reveal a secret treasure, "I want you to meet someone." And then she walked in. A young woman, maybe 24, 25, tall, graceful, polite smile. Her hair was tied back neatly, her clothes modest but elegant. She looked like the kind of girl any mother would hope for her son. But the moment her eyes met mine, something inside me broke open, because I knew that face. Not from a marketplace, a school meeting, or a casual neighborhood encounter. No, I knew her from somewhere dark, a place I had spent years trying to forget. My throat tightened. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. She blinked, then offered her hand politely. "Hello, Mrs. Brooks. My name is Anna." But her voice, that soft, trembling voice, I had heard it before too. I forced a smile. I shook her hand. After Anna, or whatever her name truly was, stepped into our living room, I kept watching her like a hawk, trying to reconcile the polite young woman in front of me with the shadow from my past. Ethan, oblivious to my inner turmoil, was beaming, clearly proud. "I've told Anna so much about you, Mom," he said. "I hope you like her." I forced a smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Of course, sweetheart. Tell me about her life, her work, her family." Her story was ordinary. She worked at a local bookstore, loved gardening, had a younger brother she cared for. Every detail sounded normal, perfectly normal. And yet, my stomach churned. I excused myself to the kitchen, pretending to check on the tea. My hands shook as I gripped the counter. Every instinct in me was screaming, "Something is wrong. Something is very wrong." The first clue came unexpectedly. Anna, while pouring herself tea, glanced at a small photo on my counter, a faded, crumpled photograph from years ago. It was of my daughter, Emily, on her last birthday before everything changed. Anna's eyes flickered, just for a second. Then she smiled, like nothing had happened. But that split second told me more than words ever could. I excused myself again, claiming I needed to tidy up. I checked the old police case files I had secretly kept in a locked drawer, the files about Emily's disappearance. And there she was. The photograph? It matched Anna. The same face, the same eyes, the same faint scar near her left eyebrow. I felt my chest tighten, my vision blurred. I realized, with a sinking feeling in my stomach, my son had brought home the last person I ever expected. Someone tied, in some twisted way, to the night I lost my daughter. The next few days were a minefield. I watched Anna carefully, noting every gesture, every subtle glance. She laughed too softly at my jokes. She over-apologized for small mistakes. She avoided mentioning Emily, which struck me as too deliberate to be innocent. And Ethan? He was in love. Completely, utterly in love. He saw only her kindness, her charm, her warmth, and I couldn't bring myself to tell him that she wasn't what she seemed. Not yet. Because I needed proof. The tension built in my chest, a heavy weight I couldn't shake. Every time Anna spoke, every time she smiled at Ethan, I felt the old pain, the fear, the anger bubbling back to the surface. I started keeping small notes, recording odd behaviors, little things. How she hesitated when I mentioned family gatherings, how she flinched at the sound of the phone ringing late at night, or how she always excused herself when certain topics came up. And then one evening, while Ethan was out running errands, I found it. A small, worn notebook hidden under a cushion in the guest room. It had entries, dates, cryptic notes, mentions of Emily, of that night, and of promises made to someone I didn't recognize. My hands shook. My heart raced. The calm, polite young woman sitting at my table was hiding a secret. And the truth was about to hit me harder than anything I had experienced before. That evening, after Ethan left, I sat in the living room with the notebook clutched in my hands. Every page I turned made my heart pound faster. The handwriting was hers, Anna's, and the details were unmistakable. She had been involved in the night of Emily's disappearance. Not directly, not physically, but she had been there. She had seen things, hidden things, and most of all, she had lied to everyone, including my son. I remembered the way she had flinched, the way she avoided mentioning my daughter. Now it made sense. She had been trying to keep her secret buried. I felt a mix of anger, grief, and fear. The room seemed to close in around me. The faint hum of the refrigerator sounded like a drumbeat in my ears. I had to confront her, but carefully. I needed answers, not more lies. I asked her to sit down, keeping my voice calm, almost too calm. "I found something," I said softly, placing the notebook on the table. Her eyes widened, her fingers fidgeted. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. "Anna," I continued, my voice steady but firm, "this notebook, the entries about Emily, the night she disappeared, I need you to tell me the truth." She looked down, tears welling in her eyes. For a moment, I saw the young woman Ethan loved, vulnerable, frightened. Then she looked up, and I saw the shadow I had remembered. "I didn't mean for anything to happen," she whispered. Her voice cracked. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell anyone. I didn't want to hurt Ethan. The words hit me like a wave. Part of me wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand justice for my daughter. But another part, the part that had suffered in silence all these years, wanted to understand. I asked again, more sharply this time, "Anna, were you involved? Were you covering for someone? Did you know something?" She nodded, her tears falling freely now. "Yes, I was there. I saw everything. I couldn't stop it. I've regretted it every day." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. Everything I had feared was true. The young woman my son loved, the one I had been cautiously welcoming into our family, had been tied to the darkest night of my life. I felt the world tilt beneath me. Ethan didn't deserve this truth. And yet, I couldn't let it go. Not now. I spent that night alone in the kitchen, staring at the empty teacup in front of me, my mind racing. How could I protect my son, hold Anna accountable, and honor Emily's memory all at once? The answer wasn't clear, but one thing was certain. I couldn't pretend anymore. The truth had to come out. The next morning, I waited for Ethan to return from work. My hands were still shaking, but my resolve had hardened. He deserved the truth, no matter how painful. When he stepped through the door, smiling and holding groceries. I motioned for him to sit. "Mum, what's wrong?" he asked, sensing my unusual calm. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "Ethan, I need to tell you something about Anna. Something important." His brow furrowed. His smile faded. "What do you mean?" I opened the notebook, sliding it across the table. I said, "Read this. It's all written here. About the night Emily disappeared." He picked it up, flipping through the pages with growing disbelief. "Mum, this can't be real," he stammered. "I know it is," I said, my voice trembling. "I've been watching, and I've seen how she acts around certain things. I had my doubts, and now the truth is here." His face went pale. He sank into the chair. I didn't know. I never knew," he whispered. I nodded. "I believe you didn't know, Ethan. But you need to understand, this isn't just about secrets. It's about accountability, about truth, and about Emily." He looked at me, tears welling in his eyes. I don't know what to do. I love her, but this changes everything." "I know," I said gently. "And you're not the only one affected. She has to face the consequences, Ethan. And we need to protect ourselves, emotionally, legally, and morally." We sat in silence for a long time, the weight of revelation filling the room. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator again, and the clock ticking in rhythm with my racing heart. It was quiet, but the silence was heavy with grief, anger, and betrayal. When Anna arrived home later that evening, I was ready. I confronted her calmly, but with steel in my voice. "You need to tell Ethan the full truth, not just what's in this notebook. Everything you've hidden." She looked at me, her eyes red from crying. I'll tell him," she whispered. "But I don't want to lose him. I love him." I shook my head. "Love isn't enough, Anna. Not when it's built on lies and hidden pain. You need to make this right, or you lose everything." Anna nodded, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear. Not from me, but from the consequences of her actions. And for the first time, I felt a measure of control returning to my life. The confrontation had begun, the emotional fallout was real, but I was no longer paralyzed by grief or anger. I had faced the truth, and now it was time to navigate the storm, to protect my son, honor my daughter, and ensure that justice was served.
A few days later, the tension in our home was palpable. Ethan had confronted Anna, and I could see the weight of the conversation in the way he walked, the slump of his shoulders, and the silence that hung between us like fog. Anna had finally admitted everything, not just what she had written in the notebook, but also the details she had hidden. She had been with a group of friends the night Emily disappeared, had witnessed things she shouldn't have, and had stayed silent out of fear and shame. Hearing it from her own lips, Ethan's face went pale. "You mean she knew?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. I nodded. Yes, and she didn't speak up. For years she carried this secret, and now we all carry the weight of that silence. Ethan's eyes welled with tears. I loved her. I trusted her. And now I don't know what to do. I reached across the table, placing a hand over his. "You do what's right, Ethan. You make decisions based on truth, not just love. Love is important, yes, But truth is the foundation. Without it, everything crumbles. Anna sat across from us, trembling. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. I I don't expect forgiveness. I needed to tell the truth." Her honesty was painful, but it was the first step toward accountability. Ethan looked at me, searching for guidance. I I need time," he said quietly, "and I think she does too." Over the next week, Anna moved out temporarily, giving everyone space to breathe and reflect. We met with a counselor, trying to process the layers of grief, guilt, and confusion. It wasn't easy. The memories of Emily's disappearance still haunted us. The shadow of secrets loomed large. But slowly, through conversation and reflection, I could feel a shift. I began to forgive myself for the anger I had carried for so long. I could see Ethan starting to understand the weight of accountability and the importance of truth, even when it hurts. Anna, too, was facing the consequences of her silence and learning what it truly means to be honest, to own mistakes, and to make amends. One evening, as I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, the sunset casting warm, amber light across the yard, I felt a measure of peace. The storm had passed, but its lessons remained. I had confronted betrayal and hidden truths. I had protected my family, and I had learned that healing begins when you face the darkness rather than run from it. I closed my eyes and breathed in the evening air. The journey ahead would not be easy, but it would be honest, and honesty, I realized, was the only path to true healing.